I'm Dr. Cheryl, and welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. The theme of our show is raising the awareness and consciousness in the relationship with wealth and applying unconditional love. Always remember that your present situation is not your final destination. The best is yet to come, by Zig Ziglar. I'd like to start with a little joke. Sitting by the window of her convent, Sister Mary opened a letter from home one evening. Inside the letter was a $100 bill from her parents. Sister Mary smiled at the gesture. As she read the letter by the window, she noticed a shabbily dressed stranger leaning against the lamppost below. Quickly, she wrote, "Don't despair." Sister Mary, on a piece of paper, wrapped the $100 bill in it, got the man's attention, and tossed it out the window to him. The stranger picked it up, and with a puzzled expression and a tip of his hat, went off down the street. The next day, Sister Mary was told that the man was at the door, insisting on seeing her. She went down and found the stranger waiting. Without a word, he handed her a huge wad of $100 bills. "What's this?" she asked. "That's the $8,000 you have coming to you, sister," he replied. "Don't despair. Paid 80 to 1. Ooh, goodness. We have an amazing guest this evening. Julie Motz is an internationally known healer and author. In 1994, working in surgery with Dr. Mehmet Oz, she pioneered the practice of doing energy healing in the operating room with patients during their operations. She has developed many innovative techniques for reprogramming the body and the mind and helped hundreds of people heal faster and recover from conditions from which they thought they would be suffering for their entire lives. She was featured in the New York Times Magazine, Psychology Today, Prevention, and the Ladies' Home Journal, on Dateline, CNN, and ABC Nightly. The Etny Reader named her as one of the people who will change the world in the 21st century. Her book, Hands on Life, has been published in 5 languages. This is the second segment of a 2-part discussion with Julie. Welcome, Julie. It's an honor and a joy to have you on our show. Well, I say we're change agents. You can call it whatever you want, but we're part of that change or the transition. I know Deepak Chopra says we're the transition team, and I'll just keep doing it.
I actually would rather be born 100 years later and just reap all the benefits of the transition. But since I'm stuck in this period, I'm happy to be able to do what I can.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying, but we're here for a reason, so I just accept it.
I'm afraid I still entertain nostalgia for the future.
Oh, okay. Well, that's your prerogative, I guess it's a nice little fantasy, which is okay. We all have to have some fantasies to survive, Can't be in reality all the time, or that can be a reality.
It's why most science fiction, futuristic science fiction, doesn't work for me, because it's always dystopian. They always predict a worse world than the one we live in, and I don't see that.
No. I think even though amongst all of the things that are going on today on the planet, all the wars, the little wars that are happening, I still think that it's headed towards a better place. It has to. I mean, we can't go on like this, and I do see that it is changing.
And actually, in terms of absolute percentages of the population involved in violence, it's less than it's ever been. It's a more peaceful time. You would not have wanted to live in the Roman Empire or the 14th century.
No. The only thing that I'm really concerned about is to see that we have 1.4 or 1.2 million detainees in prisons. I just don't understand that. And
I've thought a great deal about that,
Oh.
and I just have a strange idea that it's related to the womb experience.
Oh, yes.
That people who were imprisoned in unhappy wombs, in some unconscious way, end up getting back in prisons. and that those cells replicate that horrible experience.
And another thing, too, on that, is that lately I have been reading about how, circumcision is so painful for a little baby.
I'm actually going to do a radio show about that. There's a guy from Oxford, Brian Earp, who wrote a really wonderful paper about male circumcision being just as horrifying as female circumcision, but people don't consider that.
No.
That it's just as painful, just as...
no wonder they're angry.
So people are furious about, female circumcision.
Oh, yeah.
But male circumcision is just, considered a matter of course.
Yeah, it's accepted.
It's totally unnecessary, terrible violence done to the most tender sexual part of an infant.
Yeah. So no wonder there's so many angry men. Because they haven't been able to heal that. Yeah.
It's not even it's not even considered a wound.
Oh.
And where it's a religious rite, as in Judaism, it's a thing to be celebrated.
Yeah. Wow. Re-education. Re-education.
Yes, and fortunately, there's a woman named Marilyn Milos who lives in the San Geronimo Valley, and has a whole organization. There's a big anti-circumcision movement.
Mm-hmm. I think
growing.
That's probably where I've read some of the information about that. So it's very important to all this healing, but getting it out there in the open is the main thing. Education. It always comes back to education. Oh, so what wonderful words of wisdom can you give about healing? Your body. I know this is a huge question because there's so many parts to it, but if you could sum it up, what would you say?
I can't sum it up, but I can say a few things.
Okay.
One is to expect to feel wonderful. Have that expectation. Appreciate that feeling good is natural. And anytime you don't feel good, there's something wrong, and it can be investigated and it can be healed. And the other thing is that healing, from the point of view of practitioner, is about truth and timing. It's about discovering the truth and finding the right time to wake the patient up to the truth. Just showing off what you've discovered about somebody is not really helpful. But creating the safety that allows someone to see that for themselves, that's tremendously helpful.
Yes. And then it's up to them. To have the desire to heal it.
Yeah.
Being aware is first.
Yeah.
Being aware that connection between your body and your wholeness and your wellness.
There's also whole training that needs to take place. On one level, we're a very hyper-aware physically people. We do all this athletic stuff, business and muscle work. But on a whole other level, we're completely out of touch with our bodies, which is why we're, in quotes, so materialistic. If we could feel our bodies, we wouldn't need to have all this stuff around us. It's really, the stuff is to allow us to have some kind of material reality because we have abandoned our bodies. Yeah. And you abandon your body because that's the part your parents have control over. They can't control your mind as a child, but they control where you live, where you go to school, what time you get up, and all kinds of things. Right. So to me, the major training is for people to be able to really feel into their bodies and feel with great precision what's happening physically, what's happening emotionally in a certain part of the body, what's happening energetically. And your heart,
and people's heart, that emotional, and I say your spirit and your soul. Yeah.
Well, the heart, remember, has 4 chambers, I think each for a different emotional state. So even feeling into the heart requires a certain kind of specificity. Is it my right atrium that feels off? My left atrium, my right ventricle, my left ventricle? It's becoming very precise in your sensing inside your own body. It is absurd that we turn something we've lived with our entire lives over to the experts, over to somebody else to deal with and diagnose and fix. We should be the experts on our own bodies.
So do you think that because there's 4 ventricles that it is associated to different parts of your body to heal?
No, they're associated with different emotional states. The left atrium is associated with perception because you take in the oxygenated blood and information from the outside world. The left ventricle is associated with action because it sends the blood pumping out. The right atrium is associated with understanding because it brings back information from all the cells in the body. And the right ventricle is associated with connection because it sends molecules from your body out into the world. So you have perception, action, understanding, and connection. And each chamber of the heart carries a different set of emotions associated with those activities.
Oh, I think that is such a valuable statement, what you just shared.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And it's interesting, that the chamber people have the most trouble with is the left ventricle, and that's the one that pumps. That's the one that has, it's anger and desire. It's like action, 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 action. And that's really the most suppressed emotion in our society. We have violence, but with no feeling attached to it.
Oh, wow.
In fact, violence is usually people's attempt to throw the pain out of their body. They're
Right.
not focused, they're not angry in a focused way. They're really trying to throw their own pain out of their body onto somebody else.
Interesting. Wow. That's so valuable right there. That is so valuable for people to understand. Wow. If people could get that, I think they could understand what they need to do.
I think if people could be truly angry, there'd be a lot less violence. Because when you're truly angry, when you feel it in your muscles and you feel it in your blood, and you feel it in your left ventricle, you get tremendous clarity about what has happened to you and what kind of actions to take that will be truly effective. And violence isn't effective.
No.
It doesn't fix it. It doesn't get you back. It's not even a moral question. It's just inefficient. But anger felt in the body can be very efficient.
So what's a healthy way to get the anger out in your body?
Well, the first thing you have to do is feel it. And many people have just like, I feel it here, which usually results in my overeating. Because I'm hiding it here. I'm holding it all in a knot here. So I'll overeat and make it go away, rather than feeling it in all the muscles of my body so I can really know, oh, this happened to me. This person caused it. What's the most effective way to deal with this? But people do. I think people will hold it in a knee and then they'll break the knee. I mean, people, So it's, if you have a place in your body where things habitually go wrong, it's probably a place where anger is being hidden and focused so you don't feel it in your whole body. And the reason nature arranges things this way is that you can't get angry at your parents growing up because you'll either hurt them or they'll hurt you.
Yes.
So,
yes. Or fear, fear of they'll hurt you.
Yeah. So there has to be, so we are trained viscerally to constantly, slide anger. That, you can get angry as long as it's not about what's really hurting you. Like mine was a very loud and angry family, but nobody was ever talking about what was really going on.
That's so common.
Yeah.
So common.
And then there are families where people just don't get angry at all. Either one, is really avoiding this connected anger that gives you clarity and allows you to change things.
I remember the first time that I allowed myself to feel angry, because I had an anger problem too growing up. Couldn't express it out of fear. I'll never forget this. My whole body started turning red.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how I'd held it in for so long. But it felt good to acknowledge it and to actually, I remember my neck was all red and I was, my arms
So the
were
blood
red.
finally got to rush to all those places where action could be taken.
Yes, and I felt so good and relieved after that, and that's when I also learned to get it out of my body if I really felt it. And then, of course, communicating it in a healthy way takes practice. Because I have to withdraw so I don't come off attacking, so I pull back and then I'll think through it and then I'll come and I'll talk about it, in a discussion, in a debate sometimes, but, attacking people isn't healthy, and it doesn't feel good for me to do that.
It's shutting the barn door after the horse is gone. To attack someone is simply revenge. It's not preventing them from hurting you. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's so much work that needs to be done, but it's okay, one if you're affecting one person at a time. That's what I'm happy about. Then that domino effect happens.
And I think that young people are more and more likely to follow a path like this. When I think back to the 1960s, which I remember very clearly, it was the first time that the vocabulary of emotions came out of psychiatrists' office and into common discourse. People started talking about feelings.
Yeah.
So it takes time for that just to first it just talks, first it just sits in people's ear, and then it becomes more and more real. So emotions have a reality now that they didn't have, 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Amen on that.
That's a huge change.
Yeah.
That's a huge change. I mean, it can be parodied, it can be laughed at. Certainly we live in Marin, which is often just like a parody of itself. But in along with all the talk, there are people taking real action. There are people who really penetrate to the meaning of the words.
Yeah, I think it is true. The younger generation are more aware about that.
I think it's because of what their parents went through and the self-awareness that their parents, pursued.
Right, right. So that's good. And then the next generation will even be better, in dealing with these issues. So it is better all the way around. I mean, I have to think that. Otherwise, it'll make me depressed.
No, I believe that.
And life's too short to be depressed for too long, that's for sure. So, goodness. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share about your work?
No, I've written a book called Hands of Life. Here's a photograph of me in my stunning surgical scrubs on the corner. On the cover, rather. It's available in the Marin Library System and also from Amazon.com.
And I will get a photograph of it and put it on here.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely. So they'll see it.
Yeah. And then I have a website, Julie Motz, JuliemOtz.com, which talks about my healing work. I also have another website, For Energies, spelled out FOURENERGIS.com, which has information about my theories of emotion and the emotional life of the body and emotional personality types. I was a very successful matchmaker for 3 years.
Oh!
Fixing people up in terms of their energy types.
Interesting.
So people might find that interesting and entertaining, figure out what type they are, where they fit in the system.
Yeah. So how long ago did you do that?
It was about 6 years ago. I did it with a friend.
Oh,
I was living in the city at the time.
And you didn't want to keep doing it?
Well, we called ourselves Chemistry Plus. I started because I thought it would be healing light, But I discovered that when you get into people's romantic lives, you're dealing with very, very deep stuff. Yeah. So it was
all
more
that parenting stuff.
It was more exhausting than I wanted. Oh. But people always had a great time on their first date, and 2 people got married.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But it wasn't the vacation from healing I thought it would be.
Oh, sure. Well, I think the couples coming in really need to be open to what it really means. Otherwise, they'll get scared or whatever, So, but hats off for doing it when you did. So, well, you've got some. So, what are you doing right now?
Well, right now I actually host 2 radio shows on KWMR, West Marin Radio. I host an art show and a science show.
Okay.
From 1 to 2 on Thursdays, and I'm seeing private patients.
Okay.
And occasionally I run a group, or I give a workshop.
Right.
And I'm thinking about writing my next book.
Good. Yeah, I know the energy it takes to write books. It takes a lot of discipline. So unless you have someone that helps you, do you?
No, I enjoy writing a great deal. It just has to be the right time. Once that time comes, and I have a picture of the book in my mind. For me, writing is a sensual pleasure. I mean, I really enjoy it viscerally.
Yes.
So it's just a question of being in the right place, and then I can write it.
Yeah.
I find writing actually fun. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if there's anything else, because we're coming down to our final time here already, if there's anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers, I certainly give you carte blanche here.
Well, I think that one should always look for the personal and the political. I believe that all power structures scale up from the family. And if you want to understand what's going on politically, in the country, you really have to understand what's happening between parents and children. Because that's the relationship between the government and ourselves. Mm. And I think that when that changes, everything else will change. Yeah. And if people are really interested in transformation, on a national level, on an international level, that's where things have to look. When I think about the environment, and I think about the rabid environmentalists and the rabid anti-environmentalists, and I'm not talking about people who have a reasonable desire to live on a healthy planet, but people who are religiously fanatic on the subject. To me, the rabid environmentalists are the people who were in toxic wombs. And they're saying, if we don't clean this place up, we're going to die. And the rabid anti-environmentalists who want to keep polluting also grew up in toxic wombs. And they're saying, if you don't let me keep polluting to show you how bad it was in the womb, I'm going to die. So they actually come from the same problem.
But the opposite
but they have
approach.
They've chosen opposite solutions. I think if people could see that, could really understand what happened in that very first environment, because when you are in the womb, the mother is your entire environment, your entire universe. I think if people could see that, they could have much more brilliant and informed choices about what to do with this great womb that we live on rather than in.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think it's wonderful, but you know, it's too bad that you couldn't clone yourself and have this information out and about, you know, all over to wake people up.
And I guess my fundamental belief is that everything can be understood and everything can be healed.
Absolutely. Amen to that. So it is.
It's just a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it takes definite discipline to do it.
And people shouldn't feel embarrassed about putting the work in. It's not self-indulgent to heal yourself.
No.
The only way you're of any use to others is if you're healed. I always take the model of the heart. The coronary artery is the first artery off the aorta. So the first blood out of the heart goes directly back to the heart. Because if the heart can't work, nothing else can work. So if you don't heal yourself, everything else you deal with is less powerful than it might be.
Interesting. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Julie. I so appreciated all your wonderful sharing and wisdom.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It was a great pleasure.
Yes. Oh, so much work to do, but that's okay.
What else do we have to do with the rest of our lives? You know,
I know.
when people complain about how long it's, I've been working on a particular piece on my healing in a very focused way for 16 years. You know, and what I tell people is, I have friends who go to the gym and they pump iron 3 hours a night, 3 nights a week. They don't like stop for a month and say, "Hey, what's the matter, muscle? Why aren't you still here?" So I say, I work out in the emotional gym.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so there's nothing wrong with working out in the emotional
totally.
gym and putting all that time into it.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually been on this treadmill for. Come on in. My friend Vienna has been sitting out there watching, and I'm sorry that I didn't get you in here sooner. That's okay, because we're done. It's okay. Yeah, no, I've been working on this since, 89.
Yeah.
89 is when I really got serious,
I started, it was when I came out here and found a therapist out here, and by accident, I wasn't even looking to go back into therapy. And that was 97. No, I came out in 98 that I started this whole phase of my own healing.
Well, I started with the Science of Mind Church, the Religious Science of Mind Church. I remember doing role-playing, and I started with my mother, because I was...
Great place to start.
Yeah, no, I wanted to heal that. And even doing a past life with my mother, which was interesting, because I know that there's traits that are the same, but I'm not the same person. She was an alcoholic. Sad, and her mother abused her. My grandmother was a preemie, and then she developed polio between pregnancies, and then she ended up committing suicide because she was in so much pain, and then she became addicted to the drugs, so she ended up ODing with the drugs. My mother's mother, and she was this petite little English woman. It was, but.
We all have tremendous violence in our history, no matter what continent we come from. And if people would only realize that violence has to be healed.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about, the blacks in our country and how little progress they've made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that the violence they first suffered has never been healed. It's just become internalized in their families.
Right.
And unless it's healed, unless it's addressed, it doesn't stop.
No.
It doesn't stop.
Totally.
It becomes more hidden, but it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I'll leave you with this. Self-discipline is a form of freedom. Freedom from laziness and lethargy. Freedom from the expectations and demands of others. Freedom from weakness and fear and doubt. H.A. Dorfman, American Mental Skills Coach. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own dream or illusion. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be a victim of needless suffering. Don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. Never give up. First, be aware and conscious of your thoughts and catch yourself before they come out of your mouth, especially the negative thoughts, into words. It takes being sedulous, persevering, and disciplined. Be grateful for who you are and where you've come from and what you have, and be grateful for your freedom. And eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds your mind and your body temple. Don't forget to exercise. Feed your spirituality with meditation and prayer. Thank God. Love yourself unconditionally. Stop criticizing, stop judging, and allowing others to dominate the way you feel and think about yourself. Be compassionate and share your abundance and wealth with others. When fear knocks, let faith answer the door. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life, by Henry David Thoreau. Thank you, Marin TV, for facilitating our show, and especially to my crew, Eric, Ginger, and Jack. Please support and become a member of Marin TV. Bye for now, until next time.